All right, so we're going to be ranking the Orbital and Eagle stratagems against the bots in Helldivers 2, and we're not going to waste time. We're just going to jump right into it. Let's do it. Starting off with the Orbital Gatling Barrage, this is one of my favorite all-time stratagems in Helldivers 2, but I will admit that it is fairly inconsistent at times, so I'm not oblivious to that. But it is so much fun to use, and it has such a quick cooldown, so you're constantly throwing something in, so it gives you that dopamine hit that you're looking for. But at the end of the day, I do get it inconsistent. So I'm gonna have to rank it an overall B tier against the bots, because at times it tends to shoot around the bots. It doesn't really kill them because they're more stationary at times, but it can do some good damage if you catch them off guard and throw it into a base or something like that. The one thing I wish this thing had was targeting, so that way when you threw it in, maybe it got like a rough idea of the enemies and targeted those enemies and kind of followed them around. That would be a little bit more effective in my opinion, but in its current state, it kind of misses more than I would like against the bots, so I'm going to rank it a B tier. So with the Orbital Airburst, I don't love this against the bots because it feels like it doesn't do enough damage to the bots. Now it's going to be great at just doing something against them, so it's going to kill the cannon fodder pretty well. It's going to do some decent damage, and it will destroy hulks if it hits the little vents, or tanks if it hits the little vents, but I don't know, it just doesn't feel good against the bots, so I'm going to rank it a B tier overall. Not bad, but it's not something I would bring in very often. Jumping into the 120 Barrage, this is one of my favorite stratagems in the game as well, because I like how precise it is, because it's got a much smaller radius when compared to the 380 Barrage, because it's going to be able to do a good salvo on a particular spot. So if you have a small base of fabricators, it's going to be able to blow them up and do some really good damage, as well as if you have a small isolated amount of enemies, especially like tanks or towers or things like that, it's going to be able to do a lot of really good damage to those. So in general, I think the 120 Barrage is a solid A tier in the stratagem department in general, but against the bots, it's definitely an A tier. I like it, but again, compared to the 380, it's not quite as chaotic. So if you're looking for something with a little bit more precision, this is a very good stratagem. So now we have our first S tier orbital stratagem, which is none other than the chaotic mess that it is, which is the 380 Barrage. I absolutely love the 380 on the bots, because it is so, it's the literally you throw it at an area and just make everything go away stratagem. It's so freaking fun. I run this very, very often when I am fighting the bots, because I'll just run by a base camp, throw this in, let it do its thing, and go in and mop up and clean up whatever is left over. It is so freaking good at destroying the bots because they're more stationary. If you have factory striders in a camp or whatever, the chaos is going on in a big camp, it's going to just absolutely decimate them. So the 380 Barrage is just so freaking good against the bots. It's one of my favorites in the game. The walking barrage is very similar in a lot of ways. It's just more precise, meaning that it operates a lot like the Eagle Strafing Run, where it's going to go in one direction. So if you know the direction of the enemy, like if you're attacking a base, or if you got a line of enemies behind you, this is going to be very good. I'm going to rank it just below the 120 because I feel like I like the 120 better, but the walking barrage is a fantastic option in the A tier category for fighting the bots, because it's going to do a lot of damage in a straight line against the enemy. So I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I don't love the laser in its current state, because for a couple different reasons. The primary reason is I don't like the uses. I feel like if you're going to give this uses, make it operate like an Eagle stratagem, where you get a short cooldown, like a 1 minute or a 30-second cooldown, but then you can use all 3 charges, and then ultimately it needs to do a full recharge of like 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Cool, just give us that option. Otherwise, take away the uses and just give us a flat like 4-minute cooldown or something like that, and let us reuse this as many times as we want. Because I feel like a lot of times people hold on to these too long, or they use them all and then they don't have a stratagem to use. So I don't love the laser, but it still is pretty good overall. It's just not my favorite in the world because of its current state. So I'm going to rank it an overall B tier, just because again, it's good, but I just want them to fix the use thing, and that would make it a lot better. And then also, one thing I forgot to mention is that I don't love this thing against the elites. I feel like against factory striders, it takes way too long to kill them and burns out the duration. So yeah, I do like it in a lot of situations, but they need to fix the use thing. It's very, very annoying. So the Orbital Napalm Barrage is an absolutely fantastic stratagem in the game, but fire damage in general is not good against the bots. I'm going to rank it a B tier, just for the fact that it does do good damage, but I don't love fire against the bots. Big explosions, high precision are what the name of the game is with the bots, and the Orbital Napalm will burn them, but it's not going to do damage to the tanks. It's not going to do damage to the towers. It's very limited in what it can do, but against the cannon fodder, it's not bad, but you're going to want to use a lot of other things in this encounter. All right, so the Orbital Railcannon has seen this fall from grace because it was a highly coveted stratagem back in the day, but now it just doesn't work as consistently as I would like. Sometimes it one-shots things, sometimes it doesn't. It has a very long cooldown. It's not as satisfying as you would like. So I'm gonna rank it as C tier because it is decent, but again, the cooldown is way too long. I wish it would 100% one-shot whatever it hits, just because it would make it more satisfying to use and be more worth it. But in its current state, I don't love this thing. It's not my favorite thing to bring into a bot encounter. All right, so as for the Precision Airstrike, this is one of the most well-balanced strikes in the game, meaning that it does a lot of damage, it has a really good cooldown, and it feels very effective at what it does. But again, it's not my favorite thing in the world to use against the bots, but it's going to be a solid A tier because it is very, very good at what it does. I like the 120 better because I feel like the salvo thing it does is much more impactful on an encounter, and the cooldown is not too bad. It's much less than the 380, but it's got a longer cooldown than the Precision. But if you want something with a quick cooldown that's just going to eliminate a tank or whatever you want it to eliminate, this is a very good option, and it's definitely an A tier option against the bots. So the Orbital Gas has definitely fallen from grace quite a bit because it was very, very strong and a very good option against anything in the game, and it was an S tier stratagem in my opinion for quite a while. But ever since they did all the changes to gas, brought in the different variants like the gas grenades and those sterilizer and all the various things, they made gas causistic and do less damage, and now the gas strike is not as good as it used to be. Now it's still pretty good overall, but it's just not great against the bots, so I'm gonna rank it a B tier. It's definitely a little bit better than the Orbital Napalm, but I just feel like the gas grenade is gonna do a much better job and cause the type of caustic damage you want it to do. But the problem with caustic damage against the bots is that they don't stop shooting, and they will shoot you and your teammates and just do circles shooting. So it's kind of a little bit chaotic using gas against the bots, but in a vacuum, if you're using other things with it, it does work decently, but not as good as it used to. So as for the Orbital Smoke Strike, I feel like it's a D tier overall against the bots. Now it will do the thing you want it to do, because the idea with the bots is that you will be able to get away from them. They'll see the smoke and then they will keep shooting in that direction, allowing you to get away. So it does do that, but I feel like the smoke grenade has more utility than this thing, and the Eagle Smoke Strike, as a spoiler, has way more utility than this thing in my opinion. So I'm not loving this against the bots, but it does work decently if you want to bring it in. But again, I think there's other things in the smoke category that are better in my opinion. So the Orbital EMS is in a lot of the same vein. It's good, but again, it's not big enough. I wish it had a shorter cooldown. I don't know, like it already has a short cooldown, but it just doesn't feel right. I don't like it against the bots overall. It feels like you could be using so many other things compared to this, because the stun grenade exists, the gas grenade exists. So this feels kind of out of place in the game, and I don't really like using it against the bots, but again, it does something, I guess. All right, so the Eagle 500 kg is an immediate S tier. This is probably one of the best stratagems in the game. It still, at times, has some issues with the consistency of blowing things up, but it is way more consistent than it was a few months ago, even at launch. So this thing's absolutely fantastic, and an immediate delete button of so many things on the bot side. You're not gonna regret bringing this thing when you bring it into an encounter. If it lands right on a factory strider, it will destroy it. It's just so freaking good at killing bots in this game. All right, so the Eagle rocket pods, just like the Gatling Barrage, is another thing that I've had a love affair with for quite a while. I love bringing these things in. I know they're very inconsistent. They're not the greatest things to bring in, but personally, I'm gonna be a little biased here and say that I do love these. But objectively, why do I think that they're pretty good against the bots compared to the other factions? So the main thing that these things are great at is they are good at dealing with the fabricators. So they have 3 uses. You throw this in near a fabricator, it will destroy it. It's very good at that, so that way you can do quick drive-bys and destroy fabricators, and it's very good. And then also it is pretty good overall at destroying the tanks and good at destroying the Hulks. In general, against the bots, I feel like the Eagle rocket pods are more consistent, even though they are inconsistent. I know that sounds contradictory, but I am going to give them a A- tier just because I do love them personally, and I feel like they have a lot of utility overall against the bots. All right, so the Eagle Smoke is by far the best version of smoke against the bots, just because it covers a bigger area, allows your team to get away, and you get more uses out of it, which is very, very nice. So I'm going to rank this a B tier. It's definitely above, both the Gas Strike and the Eagle Napalm. So I'm going to rank it at B tier because it does have some good utility overall. And it's going to be good for helping your team get away if you're getting shot at. If you want to jump pack away like Batman, this thing is really, really good at allowing you to have a lot of versatility if you want to have a way to get out of a situation if you like. All right, so just like the Orbital Napalm, the Eagle Napalm Strike is not great because fire in general is not great against the bots. It's not unusable, but it's not great. I'm gonna rank it a C tier. It's definitely a little bit worse than the Railcannon in my opinion, just because again, fire damage is not the greatest against the bots. It's gonna do something, but it's not gonna do very much, unfortunately. All right, so the Eagle cluster bombs are an amazing utility tool against any enemy in the game. No, they're not going to absolutely destroy elites, but they're just so great at massacring huge amounts of enemies. They have 5 total uses. They're just an absolutely fantastic option. So I'm going to rank the Eagle cluster bombs an easy A tier, but I'm going to rank it just behind the strikes, just because I feel like it is much better, has much better utility overall than the Eagle rocket pods. Even though the rocket pods can destroy fabricators, technically the cluster bombs can't do that. But in terms of just dealing with enemies, there's not very many other better Eagle stratagems except for one that we're going to go over just in a moment. So with the Eagle Airstrike, this has been one of the hardest things for me because it's definitely got a lot of S tier qualities, but it's also got a lot of A tier qualities. So against the bots, I'm gonna have to rank it A+. It's definitely the highest A tier against the bots just because it is so great at what it does and it's very consistent. It will do consistently good damage against the elites in the bot side. It will do very good damage against the fabricator or the bases because it will destroy multiple fabricators if you do it very well. In general, it's just extremely consistent at what it does, and it's a very good stratagem if you want to bring it into a bot encounter. All right, so the Eagle Strafing Run, I've made a video on this in the past. It is just an absolutely fantastic stratagem to bring into any encounter in the game. Ever since they gave it the heavy armor penetration, it has been absolutely fantastic against any enemy in the game. It's going to do some amount of damage, if not flat out kill them. I find that this kills a lot of things on the bot side way more consistently than it doesn't. Meaning like it can kill multiple fabricators at a time, it can destroy the hulks, it can destroy the tanks, it can destroy fabricators, or factory striders, I mean, if you hit them all over their body. Again, I love this thing, it's absolutely fantastic. So it does offer a bit more utility than the cluster bombs because it can destroy ads as well. I'm actually gonna rank this right here, right above the Precision Strike, just because again, I feel like it is way more underrated than people give it credit for. And you should be using this a lot against the bots because it is very, very good against them and will do a lot of damage. Alrighty, so this is my overall rankings for all the Eagle and Orbital stratagems against the bots. So the S tier options are things that you're going to bring in every time. The 380 is a fantastic option, so is the Eagle 500 kg. The A tier options are ones that you can bring in a lot and they're going to do you very, very well if you use them correctly. They're absolutely fantastic options against the bots. The B tier options are good, but they're not things I bring in often, and they're more or less kind of cherry on top type things. They're not great in my particular opinion, then they're very kind of inconsistent. And the C tier options are things that I would not use very often until they're fixed or offer some more utility. And then the D tier options are things I would never bring in because they don't offer a lot of utility over many of the other things that we get above them. Let me know what you guys think about my list down below in the comments, and then let me know what your list is for all the Orbital and Eagle stratagems against the bots. Anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.